Hi everyone, and welcome back to Graduate Career Launchpad. I'm Simon Gibson, Graduate Recruitment Director here at Prosperl, and today we have the pleasure of hosting Ben from RSM Australia. So RSM is one of the nation's leading professional services firm and an absolute powerhouse in the mid-tier accounting and advisory space. Bit of info on RSM. RSM Australia is part of the global RSM group, the world's sixth largest network of assurance, tax and consulting firms. With over 2,000 professionals across 32 different offices in Australia, that's a lot. RSM partners with businesses of all sizes to help them move forward with confidence. An interesting fact to help set the stage, in 2025, RSM ranked number 8 in Prosperl's top 100 graduate employers in accounting and advisory, which is absolutely amazing. So today we'll be exploring what makes RSM a compelling place to launch your professional services career, what they look for in candidates, how the recruitment process works, all those sort of nitty-gritty things, and practical advice for aspiring students. So very happy to have you joining us today, Ben. Ben is a senior consultant within the talent and early careers space at RSM. Mate, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, and thank you for your time. Really keen to hear some of your insights and stories, and some of those things that make RSM a great place to work for grads. So thanks for coming along.
Thank you so much for having me, Simon. Really great to connect and have a chance to talk a little bit more. I mean, we use Prosperl for basically everything, and it's such an important setting for students to come across and gain all of this information about organizations. So yeah, anything I can put out to talk a little bit about RSM, but also about applications in general, because I know it can be hard for students to get that first, grounding out there. Definitely really keen to participate. Glad I was invited.
Yeah, brilliant. And you're right, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of moving parts, excuse me, for students, a lot to know and understand, but also lots of support. And I think it's about making sure you give yourself the best opportunity out there. But over to you. Tell us a bit about your role and how you work with graduates and sort of student teams at RSM.
Yeah, so I am the senior consultant in early careers at RSM, which basically means that I look after everything from the attraction and retention piece all the way through to someone's first day. Here at RSM, we are a professional services firm. We are an accounting firm, which means that when you do start, you do join a big team, you join an established team, and you join some established work. So we do have a lot of support for people when they join. But for me, I tell these teams often a lot, you join on day one, you become part of the team. I'm here to support you on the way up to your journey and all the way through your journey. But I'm here to make sure that everything's facilitated and well put together. So in that regard, I'm responsible for creating the ad content, creating our job ads, basically screening through everything, reviewing assessments, being on physically at assessment days, and then the trickier side of things, which is coordinating all of our internal stakeholders to actually make that happen, to get them where they need to be on the assessment days, to give them the information, to coordinate the careers fairs and make sure that when we have people going out to universities and careers fairs, that they have all of the right information about where they need to be and what they can expect. So yeah, basically everything. I am everything early careers. I'm part of the team that we have here, but really covering off the full gamut of different activities, everything into the lead up. I really do want to. We have a very established learning team that takes place of day one and onwards, and I do want to get more involved with them. But we definitely want to make sure that we're there to get everyone started off on the right foot as well.
Right. So you're going on.
Yeah.
Basically,
I think it's the same for everyone else in the field. Like when you're responsible for the early career space, you always find that you're doing a little bit more. It's not just recruitment. And on the lateral side of things, when you're looking for senior consultants and managers into the business, yes, there's the expansion side of things. But it can often be a bit reactive, where someone will quit, or you'll get new business or something like that. And that's why we need a new director in the area. That's why we need a senior manager. Whereas when you look at graduate recruitment and early careers, it's very proactive. The firm is thinking ahead. We're thinking right now, this is, February 2026 that we're talking. And I'm talking with my stakeholders about February 2027. Some we're talking about July 2027 as well, that end of first semester next year. So you get to be a bit proactive in that regard. You get to put together plans and go, well, we'll do this at this time of year, and then we'll do that at the next time of year. and that means that we'll have this person here, or we'll have this amount of people here. So that's part of what I like about the whole grad process. And you know, you get a new refreshed set of grad candidates every year as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think for those people watching, and what Ben said there about lateral recruitment, a lot of recruitment teams is just for your own general knowledge. You have your early careers, which is, as Ben said, is a separate beast. We're forecasting 12, 18, 24 months in advance. It's very cyclical. Your lateral recruitment or experience hire recruitment is generally run potentially by a completely separate team. Sometimes you might wear multiple hats, but again, it's a bit more reactive. It is obviously still based on planning, but it's a very, very different style of going about bringing people into the organization. Ben, you're a seasoned professional in this space and in the early career space. This isn't your first rodeo. What attracted you working at RSM?
First, I will apologize in advance because I know that you just gave a definition of lateral recruitment. So I have come through professional services in graduate recruitment, and it is jargon central. You know,
I
like
would say the same thing. Yeah.
everyone loves acronyms. Everyone loves a little, you know, phrase that no one else uses. And I think that's something that I was not expecting when I stepped into professional life in general, of just how much of a different language you develop. But yeah, so apologies in advance for any jargon or acronyms or anything like that. I'm trying to do my best, but you know, we'll see how we go. So in terms of grad recruitment, what attracted me to this space, I've always liked the cyclical nature of graduate recruitment, and student recruitment in general. Prior to my early careers roles, I was working at a nonprofit, where we were recruiting volunteers and sending them overseas, and not like, you know, build an orphanage in 2 weeks in Cambodia kind of thing, but like proper government sponsored placements, work for 12 months with a local community, you know, work on, if you're an English teacher, go to Papua New Guinea and work with their Department of Education to work on the English curriculum. So really like deep, meaningful assignments. And because it was volunteers, it was very difficult to find candidates. It was very difficult to find clients, all that kind of side of things. But it did have that same kind of cyclical nature. Everything was very calendar driven. If you want to get someone into a country, into Nepal, well, there's visas, there's flights, there's accommodation, there's bookings, there's all sorts of things. You're talking about a 6-month window or a 12-month window, and they've got to do training from your end, and, you know, got to get their insurances intact and sell their house and all that kind of stuff. So that was what drew me to early careers as a start of just, you know what, I've seen what long cycles of recruitment look like. I've seen what that is, you know, I've seen what that is, and I'm interested in that kind of a space. And then you kind of tie that in with the early careers side of things as well, where everyone talks about this in recruitment, how you're, you know, making a difference for people and getting them a job and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's more true in early careers. Like, not saying it's not true elsewhere, but it's more I would say more tangible. You know, like you can touch it, you can feel it. Even if they don't end up in a grad role, you're able to give people advice, you're able to give people direction, that can have an impact on someone who's never had an interview before. There's so many candidates who I've talked to who, when you're booking them in for an interview, will tell you, like, this is my first interview ever, you know, never done anything. I need help, you know? So even if you're able to give them that little bit of the 2% of information that they didn't have before, that is something that attracted me to the space of just being, you know what, I've got all this knowledge. Why can't I share it? And then to kind of add to the longer question of, well, of why RSM, prior to RSM, I was at Deloitte for close to 4 years, Big Four professional services, well-oiled machine, grad team works there, you know, like they're looking for hundreds of grads, hundreds of vacationers. It's a really efficient process. It's a really good process and good people. But I saw a challenge at RSM. I saw a firm that had a similar background and some similar capabilities that wanted a bit of fine-tuning and wanted a bit of polish to what they've been doing. They've been bringing on 100-odd grads a year, which is still a huge number when it comes to Australian grad intakes. It's definitely like top 10%, I think. But how can we do it better, and how can we set up these grads and put them into positions where they can succeed? Because I think that's the most important thing, is when you're looking for someone into what is ostensibly usually their first career role, is how are you giving them the guarantee that this is going to work out? How are you giving them as much information as possible? So yeah, saw that as a challenge and a chance to step up and be more involved, and was very excited about the opportunity.
There you are. Excuse me, fantastic. Um, Ben, you touched on a really interesting point there, and this is something I've heard for many, many years. And again, I'm XEY, so Big Four background as well. A lot of students, what's the difference between, say, a Big Four and a mid-tier? And the mid-tier range can go from, sort of quite small boutiques through to, obviously quite large mid-tiers like RSM. What would you say sets RSM apart as an employer, especially in this early career space?
I think it's going to sound like a cliche because a lot of employers say it, but we genuinely are a very people-centered business.
Yep.
There is really that individual attention to your growth and development, and individual attention to where you are starting and where you are able to take yourself and push yourself. That's not to say that that doesn't exist in other organizations or doesn't exist in, Big Four professional services or anything like that. But this is potentially comes with chances to accelerate your career. Come you within 12 to 18 months, you could be stepping up into the next level. Or not could be, like that is the typical pathway and timeline of graduates that we have coming in. So there really is that chance for someone to come in, step up, accelerate, work in a firm that has a lot of opportunities out there. And one thing that you mentioned very early at the start, yeah, we have 32 offices around the country. Most of them, about 8 to 10 of them, are based in major metropolitan areas, but the remainder are based regionally. So we have about 15 offices in regional WA, and then some of the larger regional cities across the East Coast, Toowoomba, Gosford, Port Lincoln, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, we I think provide an interesting blend of firm in that regard. Like we are not truly the big corporate in some of these areas as well. We are the biggest name in some of these areas, in some of the towns that we are based in WA.
Good.
I know for one of them, we are the only accounting firm in town, like there is no one else basically.
Yeah.
But there is that opportunity for our clients. We kind of have that attitude across the company of that client service model. You are working directly with your clients. You have that direct impact. So that is something I think that people can get a real taste of, and are able to fine tune some of their technical skills beyond that. I think always when it comes to accounting work, there's the obvious side of things, which is the technical side and the spreadsheets and the balance sheets and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, as a client-based company, we are, you need to have that client-based interaction, and we provide an opportunity for people to start in that kind of a role and to build their skills and focus their skills in that regard, because I think that can be often the difference between how you step up your career as well, is just being able to kind of harness those person-to-person skills as well.
Yeah. And I think really hit the nail on the head there. From one thing I hear from a lot of employers is that they've been able to work with a wide range of individuals, wide range of people from different age and cultural demographics, both internally and externally with the clients is a really important piece for students, for grads starting their career. Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I saw you on a panel session a couple of weeks ago. Well done. You did a great little speaker slot there. You're talking about COLAB. What's COLAB? Is it part of your graduate development program? Yeah, can you elaborate on that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So COLAB is one of the centerpieces of our graduate development program. Every grad goes through COLAB, no exceptions, basically. It's usually run it's run twice a year, actually, to take account for both of our intakes. So usually in March, April, and then in October, November-ish. Basically, we grab every grad from around the country and we stick them in a room, Sometimes it's 2 rooms, sometimes it'll be Western states, Eastern states, all that kind of stuff. But really the goal is to put everyone through a multi-day developmental program. Boot camp is one of the words that's used to describe it. I think that's pretty accurate. It's not something that happens on day one. I think and that's why I think it's important. It's something that's happened after everyone's had a few weeks of exposure to the business. You've learned a little bit about what you're doing. You've learned a little bit about what's normal. I think it's important to have development on day one and have some kind of, connective activity as well. But this is kind of the next step beyond that. It's how can we make sure that you've taken whatever you've learned? How can you learn more about RSM? How can you learn more about yourself? How can you learn more about your clients? How can you learn more about the business? We give everyone the opportunity to sit in together, be a cohort, to learn, collaborate, that's probably, I wasn't here when they decided on the name of COLAB, but collaborate is probably where it's come from. I would have to ask Shane about it. And he'd probably ask me why I'm asking such a dumb question, but
It's another acronym, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You look at it as an acronym, but it probably means something. We really we want our recent graduates to feel like a part of the organization. We want them to have one level of standard learning and development as well. Because a lot of the learning and development that they'll take on during their time here is going to be very team specific and division specific and technical.
Yeah.
And this is your soft skills. This is your, what's happening, how's it happening, and also functions as a little bit of a check-in too. After a couple of weeks, has everything gone okay? What's next? Here's the chance to talk to some people about it that aren't the people that you see every day as well.
That's perfect. So if you're bringing in, say, circa 100 grads a year, every grad will come in and do this either in that early start, sort of first half of the year, second half of the year, depending on when they start. And it's face-to-face, in-person learning for a few days. That sounds brilliant. I think it's good. It's an extra on top of their onboarding and induction, which they'll get. I'm sure as all RSM employees will get as well, but they'll have a grad-specific one. But to have that as actually a dedicated part of the program is really, really impressive. That's good, mate. If I was I'll take it to the step of, again, I always thought try and frame this if I was a student thinking about this or asking the questions. RSM, you have multiple service lines. And for those listening, a service line could be assurance, audit, tax, digital consulting. So we sort of think of these as buckets, if you will. What sort of service lines are typically available for grad entry? Are they all open? Does it depend on the team? How much exposure do grads get to different type of work or different types of work or clients in their first year? So
typically all of our service lines will be open for graduate applications. There may be one or two who have either in their forecast plans not necessarily required a grad or think that their forecast plans kind of require more experience, but there's definitely space for people to slide across there. But all of our service lines, the main ones being audit and assurance, business advisory, corporate tax, risk advisory, restructuring and recovery. Those are probably the 5 biggest off the top of my head. We've probably got about a dozen service lines when it comes down to it. Some of them are very technical, but at an entry level, like you don't have that technical ability. You just have what you have as a graduate is the interest, and that's the most important thing. And there's a whole tool that we've got online, which I'll probably end up getting to at some point, that we want people to use to kind of figure out what they're actually interested in. So most of our graduate roles will be open for advertising, for application when everything launches up fairly soon. What was the second half of the question? Sorry.
It's just around the type of exposure. If I was a grad, like what sort of exposure will I get to different clients and sort of different types of work in that first 6-12 months?
So in that first 6 to 12 months, we want you to become an expert in our area. Our graduate program is not a rotationally based graduate program. I would say we're very similar to the rest of the professional services industry in that regard. And basically what that means is if you start as an audit grad, within a couple of weeks, you'll be working on real client work. You'll be working on real audit work. We will give you the training and development to make sure that and the oversight from experienced members of the team to make sure that you have a place to ask questions and you have the comfort and the safety, to be able to start on this work. But from a very early stage, you will have the opportunity to undertake meaningful work and to undertake work that will be, yes, the work that you do as a grad might be the first step in an audit, might be the first step in the process, might have to be checked off by 3 or 4 more different people. But that is something that, hey, like someone else isn't doing it. That's something that you're doing, that's your achievement basically. So within 6 to 12 months, you'll have the opportunity. I would say typically your first assignment, your first project will be something that's determined. You're here, you're a new grad. Hey, you're working on this. You're working with Steve. He's your boss. He's your manager. Please ask him. From there, you'll have the opportunity to kind of go, well, I did a I did an audit on a financial services client. I'm actually interested in that area. So typically this partner looks after financial services. Can I make a bit more of a connection with them to make sure that the next time something comes up, that I'm staffed into this space? Similarly as well, if you go, you know what, I did financial services, that is not me at all. I want to be working on audits for like government or environmental services companies or things like that. Again, you'll have the opportunity to use your internal networks to build and figure out who helps out, who goes where, like, is this a direction that you want to push yourself? I wouldn't say that everything's completely self-guided, but we do want to give people the opportunity to figure out what's important to them, and what makes sense to them and where do they want to take themselves.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like I like the notion that there's the support and structure when you start, but it's not going, this is what you have to do forever. It's a case of what do you enjoy doing? What are you good at? Where are you going to excel? And if that might mean a different function or, doing some comments or whatever it might be, that those options and opportunities are there. Ben, you mentioned before in that response around interest. So this is a really common question we get asked a lot by students. So what are some of when we'll talk about candidate attributes or qualities or characteristics, whatever you like to call it. What are the core things you're looking for when reviewing graduate applications?
I mean, this is usually at a later stage of the application when you're actually talking to someone or when someone's doing a video interview or they have a chance to inject their voice into the prompt in a way that potentially a CV doesn't include. But interest is one of the most important things to me. Interest, and I would say how it relates. So, for example, if you're applying to a corporate tax role at RSM, if you can say in your digital interview or your phone call with me or your, little paragraph where we ask you to, hey, why are you interested in this role? If you can give me something that says, I'm interested in this role, and to detail something that shows that you've done a little bit of research into what corporate tax is, and then you've got a half sentence or so that says, I'm interested in this because, that is really important. That will resonate. It can be the smallest reason, like I read a news article about, tax, and I think it'd actually be really cool to be the person who's reporting on these kinds of things or putting it together, or I want to have influence on policies or things like that. Like it can even be, I'm not against saying the kind of thing like my cousin does this, my dad does this, my parents do this, and that's why I want, because that's real, I think. And I think, it's sometimes it can be, it needs to be, dad does this and I'm genuinely interested, not dad does this and he's told me to fill out this application, because I've seen that. I've seen it written inexplicitly, those words, basically. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I would not put that down, but you do you, I guess. But I think as long as you're able to communicate authentically that this is something that you feel is a direction that you want to take yourself, that is going to take you a little bit further than candidates who are just saying, I need to apply for something. I need to apply for something. So I've applied to this. Why have I applied to this? Don't know. It could be anything. And I completely understand that it's difficult. If you haven't worked, in a corporate tax role, you don't know what a corporate tax role is. It's hard to do a lot of research on a lot of these different things. But whatever you can inject in from your personality, that helps bring you a little bit out from the pool of applicants. And I think that is really what helps give color and character to your application. Again, even if it's a 2-sentence, read the About Us page on the website, think you look pretty good, like fantastic. Shows me you've done something, shows me you're interested. It's the best first step. It's not the only step. It's not the only thing we look at. But I think it's a really good first step.
Yeah. Okay. And feel free to share if you're able to, and if not, completely understand. What sort of application numbers do you get nationally?
Nationally, I believe last year we had about 6,000 across.
6,000.
Yeah, 6 to 8, I think it was. I'm including incompletes as well to some degree.
Yeah. Yep.
Across what probably ended up being 100 odd roles, 120 odd roles.
Yeah. Okay. So for those watching and listening, when Ben says, think of ways to stand out in your application, think of that we're in early careers, we have this, what we call basically a funnel. So your top of funnel, so you got 6,000 applications, and we need to get down to a number to narrow it to assess, let's just say 200 people for 100 roles. We'll call it a 2-1 ratio for argument's sake. How can you stand out during that process, right? And he's giving you some really clear insights there. So some what we call some green flags. Do some research. Take a bit of time. Personalize your application. Don't just sort of send out a generic one if you think it's going to do the job, because this is probably your one shot to have a good crack during this calendar year or this sort of campaign anyway. Okay. Any sort of red flags that you would say weaken an application?
I think when it comes to CVs, like difficulty, if something's not there or if it's difficult to find, I think then that can make the first impression more fleeting. If you don't have your degree listed on your CV, then what am I going to do? You know, that's one of the more important things that we're looking at. I think from a pure like application perspective, I think being unclear, whether that's being unclear about your CV, your application, the words you write, things like that, I think that can hinder you more than it can help. It is very difficult when you're in grad phase, because there's often a lot of different applications you have to make. And if we're talking about personalizing things, it can often require a lot of time to do that. And if you were to personalize, your CV and your application from scratch, could take an hour. If you wanted to do it to an incredible standard, but if it takes an hour, you're going to get 3 job applications done a week, and that's not going to help you as a candidate. So I think there are shortcuts you can take in that regard, but it is making sure that your shortcut doesn't become the only thing that you do. If you're applying for audit roles and tax roles, maybe have an audit CV and maybe have a tax CV, and the audit one, you can just reuse it in a similar way, and just put it across there. In terms of other red flags, I think it is also preparation as well. When we speak to candidates too, I have no issues with people saying this is a bad time. I have no issues with people saying, like, I can't talk right now. You know what? Can't think right now. I've had a couple of people say that, like, you know what? I have the time, but I'm not prepared for this conversation. Can we talk again in half an hour, 15 minutes, all sorts of that, all that? Yep. Absolutely. Totally okay. I want you to come into the conversation. If you have a conversation or a digital interview or a online test that you do, I want you to come in as prepared as possible, and come in as comfortable as possible into the interaction. But if you're kind of there, like, I can wing it, but I can wing it, but I actually can't, I can wing it, but I have no idea who I'm talking to. If you're asking me to repeat the name of the company for the 6th time in a row, like, that is not something that helps make a good impression, is what I will say. We are doing our best to approach every candidate equally and evenly and fairly. And we want to give you as much of an opportunity when we're talking to you, when we're reviewing your application, when we're looking at your CV or looking at your digital interview. And from that, we want you to be able to come to us and go, this is the clearest, most authentic picture of me possible. And this is how I can share it. And I don't know if there's a further question, but I've stumbled onto something by saying authenticity, and that kind of takes me to AI and ChatGPT and, all this kind of thing too. I don't hate it. I'm not against it. If you're filling out a question, asking why you're interested in this company, why are you applying to this, all that kind of stuff. But you really need to be careful. You really need to personalize things, because if you are answering a question about why you're interested in this role, I think I heard the word when I was looking after a particular role last year that was an accounting and tech role. I heard the word intersection 100 times. I heard the word intersection 1,000 times in so many digital interviews. And that was the thing that told me that's an AI word. That's a ChatGPT word. You've punched in why am I interested in this team, and it is because it sits at the intersection of this and this, So I don't think it's bad necessarily if you're using these services to give you a baseline of information that you might be able to talk to, but we want to understand who you are properly. And if you have the same answer as everyone else on the street, then I'm going to assume that I'm going to make an assumption about you. I'm going to make an assumption that you're not interested in this role, or that you're not interested in giving us a perfect answer, or that you're, like, to get really uncharitable, that you're lazy, and that's not an assumption that I want to make. But if you're just punching in, like, tell me about a time how did I deal with a difficult situation? And it says, this is the difficult situation. This is what I did, or I'm interested in this role because it has this exact same buzzword as everyone else. And I'm punching in, like, my teams and definitions into GPT this year just to see what it's going to tell me. And
Okay.
just, if it's giving me those exact words, then I can keep a lookout and go, okay, intersection or whatever. Yeah, just to try and keep a little bit ahead of the game. We want people to put in an effort, and we want to use our process to give effort back to you as well.
Okay. So I think that's a really good outline there, Ben. I think if again, for those watching, listening, if you're going to use AI to assist your application, yep, that's fine, but make sure you're still putting your own personal touch onto it. I think as recruiters, we are finally tuned in, and it is quite. I've heard a lot of companies now say that they don't take cover letters anymore as part of the application process because they're all the same. Because everyone said, right, write me a cover letter for this graduate job for company ABC, and it spits out the same document. And if everyone's doing the same thing, you're not getting that value there as the organization to go, who's this individual really? What are they about? What are their motivations? So the key message there is, yeah, if you're going to use it, that's fine, but make sure you're adding your own personal touch to it. So using it as an assistance tool as opposed to do it for you.
Yeah. Cover letters are something that we are not paying a lot of attention to, but
Yep.
we will have a question in our application screen that basically says, why are you interested in this role? I'm completely aware that it is going to get bogged down with ChatGPT responses, but it will also give the chance for some people to craft something genuine as well.
Right.
And that's what I'm hoping for a little bit more,
Yep.
is that for everyone who just puts in yep, RSM is a big company and I want to work at a big company kind of thing that, GPT spat out for them, there will be other people who can go and genuinely give me I am interested in this because I read an article, changed my life, blah, blah, blah. That's why I want to do audit kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Again, I'm not against it. We don't use AI for screening CVs though. We are still manually checking everything and, making sure that we're looking to get as best of an understanding of your profile when you apply as possible. But even having said that, we're not against it as an organization, and we're not against it from an application perspective. I know it's a reality, but I want candidates the most important thing is that you can think, and we use the application to see how well you can think before we actually have a chance to talk to you. And if you're not giving me those indications, then it's not a good start.
Ben, some really great insights here. Last one for me. What would your ideal applicant be doing now while still at uni?
I think it's important whilst you're at uni to get what you can. I don't think that, to me, there's no ideal applicant when it comes down to it. We want a diversity of thought and opinions and backgrounds and capabilities. And honestly, with 100 odd grad roles, we will have that opportunity to find a diverse set of candidates, which is really part of my goal. But I think you need to have something. You need to be getting some form of, it doesn't need to necessarily be professional experience, but what can you get that differentiates you from someone else? If all you have time for in your life right now, outside of job applications, is university and your part-time job down at Macca's, fantastic, good. But what can you do? What can you write about in your part-time job that differentiates you from someone else? Even on your CV, if you're Employee of the Month, put it down. Like, even if it's your job at Big W, like, that's something that no one. If you are the Employee of March 2025, no one else was the Employee of the Month at March 2025. Like, it isn't anything that's a concrete achievement, I think, is important. So what you can do to secure concrete achievements right now
is definitely beneficial. If you're able to secure yourself an internship, if you're able to secure yourself other professional roles, that's fantastic. And it will give you something that you are able to write about more effectively or to talk about more effectively. But I think if you're a student who's not able to do that or not in that situation, I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to panic. It's what else can you do, and then how can you talk about your transferable skills and capabilities. For one thing, I like students, if they can make this connection themselves and talk about it themselves, but students who have been tutors or have led tutoring groups or things like that, I think that's handy because when you break it down, it shows that you are taking a technical concept and explaining it to someone with less technical knowledge. And from a firm that is professional services where we are client focused, that is something that you could be doing. You'll be talking about whatever tax policy that you're working on and how it applies to this firm or how it doesn't. So if you have that ability, like, you need to recognize it and kind of harness it. If you've played in the sport, teamwork, that kind of thing. But sometimes you need to help us make the connection, because we try to avoid assumptions in recruitment. We really don't want to just sit there and go, okay, well, he played footy, so he must be a good team player. You need to make that connection for us, basically. So, I think if you're in your final year or penultimate year or something like that, you need to maintain your lifestyle. Some unis offer study and work and unpaid work. And I understand that it's very difficult for some people to achieve that because, we need money. But what you can do is try and draw those connections or put anything together. I'm not, if that's a society, if that's a nonprofit, if that's, volunteering, if it's your local sports team, your local scout group, whatever, there's a lot of things that you do in your life that can be relevant to your future corporate career.
Brilliant. Ben, thank you so much. I think for those, again, watching and listening, you've got a great graduate program, large intake, 32 locations. You've got the COLAB, you've got that virtual support, you've got the in-person support, you've got the opportunity to explore different parts of the business and different types of work and different clients. You've heard Ben talk about what they're looking for, sometimes that motivation, that desire, research and knowledge of the organization, and how articulating your story and your transferable skills is a really important part of the process, because we weren't there as recruiters. So, we don't know what you're doing, what you're capable of, and what you achieved. For our listeners, RSM's graduate opportunities offer a chance to work with diverse clients across all sectors. Again, global company, right? It's just a good place to work. Combines resources of a major firm with the personal development and client relationships of mid-tier practice. You can check out RSM's profile on Prosperable. Applications are opening soon for grad and interns or grads.
Yes,
should I say?
February 16th, up until the end of March or March 23rd, I think. But don't be the last person in,
Yeah, absolutely.
But we will look at your application if you are the last person in. Trust me. But don't be. So
don't leave it to the last minute. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks everyone. That concludes our session of Graduate Career Launchpad. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes that will bring you insights from other top Australian employers. Thanks so much for listening, and best of luck with your applications. Thanks very much, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me, Simon.